Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another exciting edition of Free Advice Friday. Looking forward to spending some time with you guys today on YouTube and answering your voiceover business and marketing related questions. I know it's been a couple of weeks since we were able to do one of these things, so it's good to be back. It's good to be on. It's good to be live. And looking forward to hearing what you guys come up with today. Looking forward to the questions that you have to ask and the things that you want to get answered. So, as with any Free Advice Friday, of course, the floor is open. I am here to do my best to answer the business and marketing related questions that you have to ask and that you would like to get answered. So if you do have a question that you would like to ask or a question that you would like to get answered, just type it into the comments. Put a Q beside it when you're typing it into the comments. That makes it a little bit easier for me to see, makes it stand out a little bit clearer on my screen. And let's talk business and marketing. Let's talk voiceover. Let's talk finding you some more work, getting you some more leads, getting you some more jobs, getting you some more opportunities. You know, it's funny. I've been talking a lot about doing leads and marketing and stuff like that on social media for the last week or so, and people are always poking at me like, why you always got to be talking directly to me or whatever. And I always say, anything that you see me share on social media, if it's a business tip, if it's a marketing tip, if it feels like it's a little poke or a prod or a nudge that you feel is directed at you, the reality is everything that I say is for me. Everything that I say on social media, that's me reminding me to do the thing, me reminding me to find some new leads, me reminding me to make sure that somebody new hears my demo today. Me reminding me that my excuses will only get me so far. Me reminding me that it's time to stop overthinking and just do the thing. And I share those things, though, because I know that at the end of the day, if they're going to help me, they're probably going to help somebody else as well. And so that's what that's all about. And that's what this is all about. So again, if you've got a business and marketing related question that you would like to ask and get answered, type that question into the comments there. I'll be watching for those to pop up on the screen, and I am here to do my best to help you out. So let's start with AJB Voice Actor, who says, what CRM would you recommend? I am a big fan of Nimble. I have been using Nimble now for 6 years, maybe, since I first started using Nimble. So I know it inside out and backwards, or I feel like I know it inside out and backwards. I'm very comfortable with Nimble. It does all of the things that I need it to be able to do. It's pretty affordable. I want to say it's going to be, if you pay for it for a year in advance, I think it works out to about maybe $25 a month or something like that. So that's not crazy. That is not a crazy investment for your business. I think that if you're using a good CRM and using it well, using efficiently, using it the way that it's meant to be used, I think a CRM will pay for itself many times over. And so absolutely worth the investment. But I will say with Nimble, with any CRM, there's absolutely a learning curve. And so it's really easy to feel overwhelmed by that CRM when you first sign up, particularly if you've never used one before. And it's really easy to get into it and realize like, oh, this, or decide this is too much for me. This is too complicated for me. This is more than I need for my business, and then walk away from it. I would say no matter what CRM you ultimately decide to use, you've got to give yourself a little bit of grace. You got to give yourself a little bit of patience, give yourself a chance to get to know it, give yourself a chance to get comfortable with it, and get over that learning curve. Now, if you are interested in Nimble, I offer a course that teaches voice actors how to use Nimble. It's literally a step-by-step walkthrough of how I am using that CRM on a regular basis. That being said, if there's other CRMs that you want to look at, I can tell you some of the most popular ones that I hear voice actors using. So apart from Nimble, Upper Level CRM, which is Brad Newman, who is the guy behind Upper Level Hosting, who I've had Brad on Free Advice Friday before. Brad's been on the podcast a couple of times. Brad is who hosts VOpreneur.com. Thank you, Brad, for hosting VOpreneur.com. Brad has Upper Level CRM, which is a basic CRM that's got some great email functionality built into it. So that's one that you might want to take a look at. HubSpot offers a free CRM that a lot of voice actors use. What I would caution you with something like HubSpot, it really is more of an enterprise grade CRM. So the free CRM is good up to a point. It does some of the basic things that you need it to do, helping you to maintain your manage your contacts in your database, etc. But if you decided that you wanted to get into some more advanced functionality, it can get really expensive. So that's the one thing you got to watch out for with HubSpot. The other one that a lot of voice actors use is Cloze, and that one is spelled Cloze. There's actually a couple of different CRMs called Cloze, but the one you're looking for is Cloze. So I think any of those would be ones that might be worth taking a test drive for. But again, big fan of Nimble here. Recently, actually, I had the opportunity to do a webinar with Nimble where I was on with the CEO, John Ferreira, and we were walking through some of my favorite features and functionality of the CRM. You can find that on their YouTube channel if you're interested in checking that one out. So hopefully that answers your question about CRM. So again, welcome to Free Advice Friday. For those of you that are jumping on, I am here to answer your voiceover business and marketing questions. If you've got one that you would like to ask and get answered, feel free to type that into the comments, and I will be keeping an eye out for those. Here's one from Mike. He says, "Hey, Mark, thanks for offering free advice. I'm just starting to do some direct marketing, but need to figure out who to target as a lead. What would be the best people to target for commercial jobs?" Okay, so I think there's a couple of different places where you can look for commercial work. First and foremost, I'd be looking at production companies who are creating the actual commercials. So these could be commercial production companies, they could be video production companies, but they're creating the commercial content. Audio production companies may be creating commercial content for radio, video production, obviously creating commercials for digital and television broadcast, right? So those would be two places that you could certainly be reaching out to and making connections with. And start on a local level, right? Draw a circle on the map with the dot of your town in the middle, and then just start making that circle incrementally bigger as you work your way out and start to look for more leads. But I would say those would be two places. And then maybe making some connections at some advertising agencies. On the production side, you're probably looking for producers, executive producers, video producers, audio producers. On the advertising agency side, you're probably looking for creative directors, would be the person that I would be reaching out to. So I think that's a really good place to start. Obviously, that's the 15-second 101 answer. This is something that I dive a little bit deeper into in like a course like Voiceover Marketing Playbook. It can get really into the weeds. Obviously, there's a lot to know, but that's certainly enough information to get you started. Norin says, Gina Scarpa talked before about backlinks and guest articles. If I wrote guest articles to local papers, how can I link them? Is this by just adding hyperlinks to a website or tags with my name? So if you were going to write an article for the local paper and they were going to publish that article on their website, the backlink would be that article linking back to your website. So the article goes live on thepress.com, whatever it is, right? And at the end of that article, there's a link that comes back to your voiceover website. So that's how you would create the backlinks. And so you would just want to make sure that when you're creating agreements to write for whatever these publications are, whether it's local newspapers, blogs, aggregate site content curator sites, or whatever it is, you want to make sure that part of the deal would be that you could include a backlink to your website that would create the SEO value for you. That's what you're looking for. Joan says, welcome back, Mark. Hope you had a great vacation. I did. Got to spend a week in the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. We were in the Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area, stayed in a cabin up in the mountains. It was absolutely spectacular. The views were incredible. My 10-year-old and my 15-year-old learned how to play pool because the place had a pool table. And so we had a lot of fun playing pool for the week. Every night I sat in a hot tub on the patio and looked out over the Smoky Mountains while the sun set and the clouds rolled in and wow, what an amazing week. But yes, that was our first family vacation since 2019. Thank you, pandemic. But we were finally able to get out and do something fun, and we did have an amazing time. So thank you, Joan, for asking. It was a great trip. All right, Christopher says, what sites would you suggest for auditioning if you don't have an agent? So, I mean, the sites that, if you're looking strictly for auditioning sites, then you're looking for online casting platforms, right? Which are the pay-to-play sites. So you're going to pay a fee, and in exchange for that fee, you're going to get access to auditions. And there are a lot of different sites that are out there that allow you to do pay-to-play. Voice123 is probably the biggest and most popular of those sites. Badalgo would be another one. VO Planet would be another one. There's a couple other sites that honestly I could mention, but I don't want to mention because I don't think they're worth mentioning for various and assorted reasons. I would never recommend them to people. Generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend them to people. But those are the types of sites that you're looking for. But then, of course, you can find opportunities. You got to pick through to find them. But you can find opportunities on sites like freelancer.com, upwork.com, mandy.com. Right? It's just that some of the better opportunities may be a little bit fewer and far between there. So online casting is going to give you access to auditions on a regular basis. A site like Voice123, you might see 10, 15, 20 auditions a day some days. Whereas a site like Bidalgo, you might only see a handful of auditions a week. Same with VOPlanet. Generally speaking, with VOPlanet and with Bidalgo, the auditions that you're going to see are better. They're fairer rates and better terms because those sites are very particular about vetting the jobs that get posted. Whereas with Voice123, you're going to see a broad range of everything from fair rates and fair value to you do this for free because we'll give you exposure. And so you've got to, choose your auditions and your opportunities wisely there as well. But those are definitely some of the sites that you could be looking for. Briscoe says, Mark, do you have any advice on how to properly price in overseas markets? There's a couple of things that you can look at here. One of the things that I have found is there are certain countries in the European Union, for example, where their prices are pretty close to the North American market. Germany, for example, has great rates, and very often the prices in Germany are in alignment or close to alignment with the North American market. One site that you would want to definitely look at is Gravy for the Brain. One of the things that I like about Gravy for the Brain is that they have a rate guide. And if you go, I believe it's rates.gravyforthebrain.com. But on the Gravy for the Brain rate guide, actually, you know what? Let's just pull this up here. Let's pull it up and take a look. If we go to rates.gravyforthebrain.com, one of the things that's nice about the Gravy for the Brain rate guide is right here. Select a country. So Australia, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Egypt. Look, they've got all kinds of countries that are listed here. And so, that's going to be a really good frame of reference as well. So if you're trying to figure out what fair market value is in some of these places, that's going to give you a little bit of an idea. But then, of course, it does come back to the age-old question of what is your budget? Try to get them to throw the number out first, because one thing I do not want to do is I don't want to leave money on the table because I quoted too low, because I made an assumption that maybe this country's rates aren't as good, right? I mean, I've done work in Italy, I've done work in France, I've done work in Spain, I've done work in Germany, Dubai, Australia, South Africa. I mean, I've worked in a lot of different countries, and generally speaking, I've gotten the rates that I've been looking for. Yeah, some countries are a little bit lower than others, and keep in mind, that's perfectly okay. I think that one of the mistakes that voice actors make is we look at the GVAA rate guide, which is a beautiful, wonderful rate guide, but we assume that that's it. And David Toback, who's the creator of that guide, he himself has said, I've asked him this question live on my podcast, the rate guide is a guide, not gospel, correct? And he said, correct. And so the GVAA rate guide is great for the United States, but those rates do not necessarily translate in other countries. Not every country has an economy that is equivalent to the United States. Canada, prime example. Voiceover rates here tend to be lower than rates in the States. We're a tenth of the size, the economy, the population. And so it stands to reason that the rates are a little bit lower. But definitely taking advantage of a site like Gravy for the Brain and looking at some of the rate guides that they offer for different countries, I think that can be a really good starting point. But again, I come back to always try to get them to throw out a number so that you can figure out where their budget is first and use that as your starting point. Thanks again, guys, for joining me on Free Advice Friday. If you are enjoying the broadcast, would you do me a favor and hit that like button? I would absolutely appreciate that. It helps me a little bit with YouTube, gives them to show me the love a little bit more, and helps other people to be able to find the broadcast as well. So if you're learning some things, if you're enjoying the show, if you're picking up some tips, certainly I would appreciate it if you could hit that like button for me. All right, Stevie says, if you were able to work 5 to 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, and wanted to build a six-figure business as quick as possible, how many marketing emails a day do you suggest after having trained plus demos website, of course? So if I've got all the foundational stuff in place, my training done, demos done, website done, studio done, and all of those things are great, by the way. Great demos, great training, great studio, great website. So now I'm ready to just go whole hog and just market my face off and try to build a six-figure business as quickly as possible. The answer is you send as many marketing emails as humanly possible. That's the answer. I think if you have a good system in place, I think realistically you can send 8 to 10 marketing emails per hour. Now, for me, I've got a lead generator that builds that list out for me, so I'm working off of a lead list. That certainly helps. I've also been doing it for a long time, so I've built in efficiencies. I've figured out how to make my system work for me. I have a template that I use that represents 2/3 of the email that I'm sending. So all of those little things have helped me to build in efficiencies to be able to send more emails. I can tell you that my first year when I was full-time, because I legitimately had nothing else to do, there were days or weeks when I was contacting 200 plus people a week, because what the heck else was I going to do? I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't have any bookings at that point. So my entire existence was doing some auditions on online casting sites, which I used at the time. I'm not active on any of them now, but it was doing some auditions on online casting sites and then sending marketing emails and just getting in front of as many people as humanly possible. That's it. That's what I had to do. And so if that is your goal, I think that's what you work towards. I can tell you from my experience that I was able to build a business to six figures in less than 4 years. So 2012 was my first year full time. I crossed the six-figure platform in partway through 2016. And I was starting from next to nothing. So, that was my timeline back in the day. I hate to say that was 10 years ago. It makes me sound old, but I do think it's still possible. But you got to do the thing. You got to send the emails. And that's it. What else are you going to do? What else do you have to do? What else is priority at that point? Now, I was sending 200 emails a week or more in the beginning because I had nothing else to do. As I started converting some of those leads into prospects and some of those prospects into clients, that obviously brought back the amount of emailing that I was able to do, because now I do have to free up some time in my schedule to do the actual recording. And you also have to shift your focus a little bit from, in the beginning, I was full-time straight up contacting new leads. Eventually, you build up a database of prospects, and part of your priority has to be maintaining communication with those prospects as well. And so, there's nuances to it, but really, you send as many emails as humanly possible while you've got the available time and hours to do it. And you make sure that you've got a system in place to just keep that pipeline getting filled. So maybe that is working with the lead generator, and they're just constantly feeding you leads while you are reaching out and making contact. But I do still think that it's possible to build that six-figure business. Norin says, is it recommended to have separate genre pages to help with the SEO? Would you like to advise how to classify genres if I'm a bilingual voiceover in a way that does not distract the viewers? So if you're bilingual, you're probably going to have duplicate. So there's two ways I think that you could go about it. I think that you could have one eLearning page, for example, and you could have your two languages on the same page. That's one possibility. Or you're going to have an eLearning genre page for each one of your languages. So maybe you've got it in English and then you translate it into your second language. That may be the way that you go about it. I would recommend, admittedly, not an SEO expert, so your situation is a little bit unique. That might be where you want to have a conversation with somebody like Gina Scarpa. Maybe she would have some better advice to give. Maybe it's that you have a version of the page, but then there's a translated version, right? Like if I go into, sometimes I have to help my clients find French Canadian voice actors, for example. So if I land on a voiceover website for a French Canadian voice talent, I might be able to click a translate button because their site may be in French, but I click the translate button on their website, it automatically translates it to English. That might be the workaround for it as well. But definitely there is value in having genre pages, genre-specific pages. So if you do commercial, e-learning, explainer, and corporate, for example, having 4 individual genre pages with copy that is written on those pages. So the e-learning page has copy about your e-learning services, information about your e-learning services, maybe some samples of your e-learning work, your demo as well, but actual samples of e-learning work, if you can get it, testimonials from e-learning clients, etc., a call to action specific to your e-learning clients and all that sort of stuff. Definitely, though, there is marketing value and SEO value in building out your website in such a way that you can have those genre-specific pages. Any extra content on your website that's done the right way, obviously, the Google machine definitely appreciates that stuff. Guys, I want to take a minute to tell you about the Ultimate Subject Line Reference Guide if you haven't heard about this yet. This is a handy little resource that I created. It's available at VOpreneur.com. The Ultimate Subject Line Reference Guide. What I did was I put together a series of subject lines because this is a question that I get asked about all the time. I've written my marketing email. Now, what do I write in the subject line? And so with this guide, what you are getting is 5 different themes that you can work from that are going to be a starting point for you to come up with some ideas. And then there's 40 pre-written subject lines that are included as well. And so those are going to be a handy resource for you. So if you have ever struggled on what to put into the subject line of your marketing emails, the VOpreneur Ultimate Subject Line Reference Guide, this is the thing that you're looking for. You can go to VOpreneur.com. It's right there on the homepage. This is VOpreneur.com. Boom, click it, buy the guide. $27. It's an instant download, and this is going to get you well on your way to creating and writing subject lines that actually convert and will get your marketing emails read and open. So I wanted to mention that as well. All right, let's see. Where are we going? What other questions do you guys have that you would like to ask? Dion Marie, I bought an iMac a few years ago, but now am hearing a very low hum from the back. Any advice? I mean, it could be just that the fan's running a little bit more. Actually, my iMac that I'm working off of right now is a 2019 iMac, and the fan runs a little bit more nowadays than it used to. So it could possibly be that your fan is running a little bit more. The other thing I would say is, have you checked your cables recently? Because it's possible that your hum could be off of a bad cable. As an Apple shareholder, I would say my advice would be to go and buy a brand new iMac immediately. That would be my advice on Free Advice Friday. But again, that's as a shareholder, probably not the best advice. But although I am in the market for one this year, but those are a couple of things that you might want to check. Sean says, hey, Mark, can't wait to see you at MAVO. Yes, I am super excited to be doing MAVO this year. Guys, if you haven't checked it out yet, pick up your tickets. Val has put together an amazing conference, incredible lineup of speakers. It's going to be a really, really great week, really great weekend. She's expanded it out a little bit this year. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's going to be a full day on Friday. It's going to be a full day on Saturday, and it's pretty much a full day on Sunday as well. MidAtlanticVO.com is the website. The conference is coming up in November. One of the things that I love about what Val has done with MAVO is she's intentionally kept it a little bit smaller, which makes it feel a little bit more intimate. When you're in the sessions, you know, there's not 200 people there, and so it feels like you've got a little bit more opportunity to get involved, a little bit more opportunity to ask questions. And for me as a presenter, I feel like it gives me a little bit more opportunity to add more value individually to more people in those smaller sessions. So MidAtlanticVO.com is the website for that one. Check it out. I'm super excited to be there. Looking forward to seeing a bunch of people as well. It's always nice to get out of the house and get into a conference and have some fun. And man, I love learning some of this stuff myself as well. Charles says, is it worth it to create a podcast for marketing? Charles, this is a really open, loaded question. Obviously, I do a podcast, and for me, I've found massive value in doing that podcast. I can't specifically say that podcast has benefited me on the voiceover side outside of giving me added credibility. I can unquestionably say that that podcast has helped me on the coaching side in having the opportunity to work with more voice actors and introduce them to my private coaching, my classes, my voiceover marketing playbook, etc. So I think when it's done right, there can absolutely be value to a podcast. The question you have to ask yourself is, who is my audience and why am I doing this? If your goal is to create a voiceover podcast to get yourself known for voiceover, I think that the chances of that converting into voiceover work are probably going to be slim. If you created a podcast where you were consistently interviewing voice buyers and learning more about them and their needs and how they work with talent, what they want from talent, what their expectations are, how we can make their lives easier, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so your audience was on the voice buyer side, then in that case, I think that there could absolutely be an opportunity for you to generate some voiceover work out of that. On the same token, let's say that you love shoes. You are passionate about shoes. You have an entire secure, clean room in your house where you store all of your collectible sneakers because that is your passion and hobby in life outside of voiceover. You decide that you're going to start doing a podcast about sneakers, and you are going to become an expert and an authority in the sneaker space through your podcast, while every once in a while mentioning to your audience that you do voiceover work because they're getting an opportunity to hear your voice and hear your delivery and hear your read and your style and your storytelling every single time they listen to an episode. Is it possible that that podcast could translate into voiceover opportunity for you? Absolutely. People who buy sneakers also potentially buy voiceover. So is there value in doing a podcast? I think it depends a lot on how you do it and making sure that you are doing it the right way. Stevie says, what are your top 3 performance and top 3 marketing tips for e-learning and corporate narration? My top 3 performance tips for e-learning and corporate narration are talk to Anganguza, talk to Anganguza, and talk to Anganguza. Those would be my 3 top performance tips for e-learning and corporate narration. Because from a performance standpoint, Ann is going to give you what you need. That is not my area of expertise. That is definitely not my wheelhouse. I don't do performance coaching in any capacity. So the best advice that I could give you would be to coach with the best people in the space. Ann would be one of those people. Dave Walsh would be one of those people. Jay Michael could be one of those people. Brad Highland could be one of those people that you could talk to who can help you dial in the performance side of e-learning corporate narration. From a marketing standpoint, it's getting in front of the right buyers. Looking for who are the companies that are creating the content? This is always the ultimate question. Who are the companies that are creating the content? That stands true whether it's corporate narration, e-learning, commercial, animation, video games, apps, toys, whatever. Who are the companies that are creating the content? I would say the 2 most obvious places to look for corporate and in e-learning would be corporate video production and bespoke e-learning production. There are companies out there, this is what they do. So I'm just giving an example here, but Delta Airlines needs to get a new employee onboarding training program created, and they don't want to create it in-house. They go to a third-party company who that's what they do. They create e-learning content for corporations. And so Delta gives them all of their information, their HR guide, whatever. This company then builds the e-learning course, which they then provide to Delta. So it's the same as if I want an explainer video done, I go to an explainer video company who creates the explainer video for me. There are companies out there that just create e-learning content. And so getting connected to those companies is going to be one of your big advantages because those are the companies that are creating that content on a consistent basis. And so that would be the one thing. So number 1 would be looking for corporate video production. Number 2, look for the companies who are creating the e-learning content. Number 3, I would say my 3rd best marketing tip in those 2 spaces, LinkedIn. Using LinkedIn and making a point every single day to connect with people in those spaces. Connect with them by adding or sending connection requests, connect with them by commenting on their content, connect with them by sharing content that adds value to them, and just working really hard on building those relationships. Norman says, thank you for doing this, Mark. Any special advice for part-timers to maximize time spent on marketing? Still in the beginner phases and shift work, best time to send emails. So when you work shift work, it can be tricky. I totally understand that. So one of the things that I would say would be write the emails when you have the opportunity to write the emails, but use software to schedule the emails to send. So if you're a Gmail user, you can do scheduled send. If you are an Apple Mail user, you can do scheduled send. So in a lot of email software and email clients, schedule sending is built into it. So if you're working the day shift and you come home and you got to write all of your emails at night, that's fine. Write them at night, schedule them to send the next morning at 10 o'clock or 11 a.m. Local time, always local time. Try to make sure you're sending emails local time. And I don't specifically mean your local time. I mean local time to the recipient. I don't want to be the guy that sends a marketing email that drops in somebody's inbox at 2 o'clock in the morning because I wasn't paying attention to what time zone they were in. So that would be the one thing that I would say. You can write emails anytime. So you just write the emails when you have the opportunity to write them. And either you leave them in your draft folder so that you can send them when it's more appropriate, or you use scheduled send in order to be able to send them at times that are more appropriate. What are times that are more appropriate? I think mid-morning through the week, maybe not on a Friday, I think are the best times. But I also say any email sent has a better and higher likelihood of converting than an email that didn't get sent. So no matter what, send the dang email. That's the other piece of advice. Again, guys, I hope you're enjoying Free Advice Friday. Thanks for joining me here on YouTube this afternoon. Always enjoy hanging out, answering your questions. I love doing it because it keeps me sharp and it helps me to determine what you guys want to know about, which helps me to create content that can add more value to you and to your business. If you do have a question that you would like to ask, I would just say if you could put a Q beside it when you type it into the comments, it does just make it stand out a little bit easier for me when I see all the comments that are flying by. Sometimes it's hard to separate just regular chat versus questions that are being asked. So if you could put that Q beside it, that would certainly be helpful. And if you're enjoying Free Advice Friday so far and maybe learning something, maybe you've picked up a tip, maybe I've answered your question, if you could do me a favor and hit that like button, I would certainly appreciate that as well. Thank you guys for hanging out always and for being a part of this and for coming and always having great questions to ask. All right, let's see. When a potential client asks what my rates are, I tell them that my rates align with GVAA and ask them what their budget was. I had one who stopped corresponding with me when I asked what their budget was. So a couple of things to unpack here. First and foremost, voice actors know what the GVAA is. The vast majority of the world outside of the voice actors have no idea what the GVAA is. So when you tell a client my rates align with GVAA, chances are that client has no idea what GVAA is. And so that means nothing to them. The other side of this, the reason why they're asking you for your rates, a lot of clients have no idea what the fair value for rates are. I had contractors helping me with work in my basement a couple years ago. A lot of the work I was able to do myself, but there were certain things that I couldn't. I have no idea what it costs to have an electrician come in and put in a new panel. I needed an electrician to come in and put in a new panel. So if I called the electrician and said, I need you to come and put in a new panel, and he said, my rates are in alignment with the electrical authority, I'd be like, great. What the heck does that mean? So when I ask him for a quote, my hope is that he's going to give me a quote because I don't know. That's why I'm asking. So that's something else to take into consideration. I would also say, though, it is absolutely worth asking what their budget is. I always do want to try and ask that question first. Hey, Mark, we'd love to hire you to do an explainer video for us. It's a 90-second narration. It's going to live on our YouTube channel. Can you give me a rate? Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide a quote for your project. It would be a pleasure to work with you. Before we get started, I just want to clarify, it's only going to be used on your website. You're not intending to use it for any paid placement, or it's not going to exist anywhere else. If you could just answer that question for me. And before I provide a number, is there a budget that you're trying to work with? Because I can certainly take that into consideration when I am attempting or when I'm putting a quote together, right? You can literally just word it like that. Sometimes they're going to write you back and they're going to say, yes, here's our budget. It's X. Sometimes they're going to write you back and say, we don't have a budget. And the reason why they don't have a budget is what I just discussed. Not everybody knows what the true value of a voiceover is, and that's why they're asking us to be able to provide. That's when you could bring the GVA into the conversation. I understand that you aren't familiar with what voiceover rates are, so I wanted to let you know that in order to do this 90-second explainer video that's going to live on your website, my quote for that for this project is $400 US. And I wanted to let you know that that number is drawn from the GVAA rate guide, which is an industry standard guide that a lot of voice actors use for quoting. And if you would like to refer to that guide, here's a link here. So that's where you bring the GVA can bring the GVAA into the conversation. Hopefully that answers your question. Tricia, if not, feel free to ask a qualifying question or ask for a little bit more clarity. But it is an important thing that it's an important topic to understand. Anytime I can get the budget up front, I want to get the budget up front, right? I do try, but I'm not going to let that be a deciding factor between whether or not I pursue a job or don't pursue a job. The other thing I would say is if you write back and say, do you have a budget? And you don't hear a response in a day or two. A couple days ago, you reached out about getting a quote for an explainer video, and I was curious if you had a budget that you were trying to work with. If you're unsure or if you don't know what your budget is because you're trying to figure this all out, that's fine too. And I'm certainly happy to provide you with the number. Just let me know if you're still interested in a quote. And so then you can spark the conversation again. Something like that. Keep it easy. All right, guys, thank you again for hanging out. Let's see, where are we going? John says, how do you comply with spam laws when you are 1, sending emails one at a time, sending targeted emails, 2, nimble only allows active unsubscribe link and mass emails? So this is a kind of a gray area. When somebody's website is, or when somebody's email is available online, it's a gray area of, can I send an email to them? Can I not send an email to them? So I will send the email to them because the email is public. So, and it's a business interaction, right? I'm inquiring about their business. The biggest things that you have to do anytime that somebody says stop sending, honor that. Honor that. That is why I never take anybody out of my CRM. If I have sent a marketing email to a company to inquire about their videos and whether or not there's an opportunity to collaborate, and they write back and say, we're not interested, please stop emailing us, I do not take them out of my CRM. I mark them as a dead lead in my CRM. That way I will never make the inadvertent mistake of contacting them again 6 months or a year or 5 years down the road, because obviously I can't remember everybody who's asked me not to send. I do think that it is important that if you are doing group messaging, that you are sending out, that you are including that unsubscribe link. And it doesn't have to specifically say unsubscribe. I don't want it to say unsubscribe because I don't want people to feel like they're on a newsletter. And I think that's one of the other differentiators too. Reaching out to a company on a one-to-one basis is different from taking a company's email and automatically adding them to MailChimp and then starting to send them a monthly newsletter. I get monthly and quarterly and sometimes bi-weekly newsletters from voice actors all the time, none of whom I have ever signed up for. That is technically or could technically be a violation of spam laws. So I think it's important that you just respect the process and how you're doing things as well. Let's see, where else are we going? MAVO is awesome. You get so much more FaceTime with people. That is absolutely true. That is one of the things that I have always liked about it. Scrolling through to see what else is going on here, guys. Again, if you've got a question that you would like to ask and get answered, feel free to type that into the comments. I'm trying to hit as many of these as possible. Will says, does getting a demo produced come with the knowledge to produce the same quality sound from your own studio going forward? Great question, Will. Cliff Zellman has a quote that I love and I live by. Your demo is a promise. When I'm recording my demos, or in the past when I've recorded my demos, I have done most of them in studio with the producer. So when I did my commercial demo with Uncle Roy, I went to New Jersey and I recorded in studio with Uncle Roy in New Jersey. When I did my e-learning demo with Ann, I went to LA and I recorded in studio with Ann. I did that just because I wanted to, because it was fun, because when I did my e-learning demo, it was February. Like, come on, February in Canada, February in LA. That's not a difficult decision. But that does create a challenge. Will my audio live up to what I'm recording on my demo in that studio in LA? And so when you are doing those demos, I think that it is absolutely important that you have had somebody who is an expert who has told you that your sound is good. So WOVO, some of you are familiar with WOVO, the World Voices Organization. WOVO offers a studio approval process. It is not a certification, it is an approval. A group of industry experts, people like George Whittam, Dan Leonard, Uncle Roy, Cliff Zellman is a part of that advisory committee. There's a few others I think that are on there, but a group of people will, you got to take a little test, and then a group of people will listen to the sound samples that they ask you to send, and then they're going to write back and say, your studio's good. Here's a little sticker. You get a WOVO approved studio badge on your website, or you don't. Now, people outside of voiceover have no idea what that means for the most part. But for me, I did it for the peace of mind to know that my studio was good enough and to know that my demo, I can live up to the promise of my demo. Uncle Roy, who is often on Free Advice Friday with us, he does free studio assessments. You can send him a sample of your studio. He has very specific instructions for it, and he will assess your studio and your sound and then tell you, yes, your studio is good enough. It lives up. And so I would say that that is definitely part of it. When you are recording your demos, especially if you're recording your demos at a studio somewhere else, and nowadays most people are recording demos in their home studios because you can with Source Connect or IPDTL or even Zoom. But if you are recording your demos somewhere else, make sure that your home studio can deliver the same quality as that studio that you recorded at. But not only the audio quality, make sure that you have the performance chops to deliver. It's really easy to do a great demo when you're in the studio working with a brilliant producer who's giving you line reads and helping you to nail exactly what you need to do in that script. That's something that's a totally different situation when you're at home and you're recording an audition by yourself and you don't have somebody there giving you that kind of feedback. And so that's the other side of it. We need to make sure that our audio quality is on par with our demo, but we also need to make sure that our performance quality is on par with our demo. All right, let's see. Where else are we going? I wanted to let you guys know about the latest episode of the podcast. If you haven't listened to it yet, the summer series has been really fun. On the summer series episodes this year, I've been giving voice actors a chance to come on the show and to ask a question and get an answer. And this week, Brandon Miller comes on the show and he had a question about LinkedIn and a specific strategy that he's heard about for LinkedIn that could potentially game the algorithm and drive higher organic reach. And he wanted to know, is this strategy worth it? Does this strategy work? And that was a really great question that I was able to dive into and give an answer to. So that's the new episode of the podcast. Again, it's available at VOpreneur.com or wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. Genevieve, I think I'd like these answers in transcript form so I can control F later. One of the things I will mention, by the way, Genevieve, if you didn't know, after the live stream is done, I do go back and add chapter markers. And so I will go back and put chapter markers that link to the specific parts of the video where specific questions are answered. So not quite a transcript, but at least it can direct you to specific questions and that are asked and answered. So that's something to keep in mind if you are wanting to come back and watch it a little bit later. Let's see, where else are we going? Terry says, I had a client that hires narrators for audiobooks and wanted to use me for an animated series they were doing. They could not wrap their brain around having to pay for usage in other genres. And look, part of your responsibility as a VOpreneur is education and having the patience to provide that education. Like I was talking about earlier, when I needed to get the quote for getting an electrical panel put in, I haven't got the faintest idea what the going rate is for an electrician. I haven't got the faintest idea what the going rate is for a panel. I haven't got the faintest idea what the going rate is for installing that panel. I don't have a clue. So if I call that electrician and I ask that question and he gives me attitude about not knowing, that is not going to make me want to work with him. When you are providing a voiceover service, when you're providing any service, part of your responsibility is education of the client and having the patience and the professionalism to be able to educate that client. Sometimes it gets frustrating. I will be the first to admit it. There are days when I have, walked away from the computer and had to go outside and take a deep breath because I just want to lose my mind on some client that doesn't seem to be getting it or whatever. But you have to have the patience and the respect and the professionalism to be able to provide that education and explain it in a way that makes it very clear to them. And so, yeah, there is an obvious difference between audiobooks and animated series. There's an obvious difference between a national commercial and a local commercial. There's a difference between an internal e-learning and a forward-facing corporate narration, and the way that those are priced and the reach that those get and the audience that those get put in front of, and all of those sorts of things are things that do factor into rates and why things cost more. I mean, look at what's going on with SAG-AFTRA right now. The rates, the rate guide that has been in place for years doesn't reflect the current marketplace. It doesn't reflect the usage in the current marketplace with all the different streaming platforms and all of the different things that are happening. And that's why we're trying to, or SAG anyway, I'm not union, but that's why they're trying to get a new deal. And so that's part of how this all works too. And so it's an education. Michael says you can show a transcript on a lot of videos on YouTube. And that's true. I do link or push the button for YouTube to generate transcripts for my videos. Sometimes it just might take a day or two before the transcripts appear. But it is something that I do offer or try to offer. I can't promise you how accurate some of the transcripts are, but it's there. All right, let's see. Where are we going? Stevie says, I want to be aggressive with hiring a lead generator. Can I do it effectively without much experience doing it myself? What level of competency do I need before hiring? This is a really great question because there's a really important consideration here. Can you teach what you don't know? That's really what it comes down to. I understand that lead generation sucks. I understand that it's time consuming. I understand that it's not fun. I understand that it is not the thing that most voice actors want to be doing. I totally get that. That's one of the reasons why I outsourced lead generation. But I also understood that in order for me to teach someone else how to do it, I needed to know how to do it myself. The better and more efficient I was at doing it, the easier it was going to be for me to train someone else to take it over. If you go onto a site like Upwork or Freelancer and you put a job posting for a lead generator, and then you ultimately hire someone and you say, I want to hire you to do lead generation. I need you to go out and find me 100 voiceover leads. And then they come back with a list of 100 voice actors. Whose fault is that? Is it their fault or is it your fault? It's your fault. It's your fault because you didn't train them properly. You need to be able to say to that individual, I want you to find me 100 voiceover leads for e-learning. And here are the very specific Google searches that we're going to do. And here are the very specific job titles that we're looking for. And here are some of the criteria that we're going to use to vet these leads to try to determine whether or not they're good leads. So you have to have an understanding of that process yourself in order to be able to effectively teach that process to someone else. Now, there is a caveat to that because there's always workarounds for everything if you know how to find and manipulate and use the workarounds. So what is the workaround for that? The workaround for that would be to use a service like VA for VO. This is not a paid endorsement. One of the things that I think that makes VA for VO unique is this is a site of voice actors who are working for other voice actors. So if you go onto Upwork and you hire someone who does lead generation but knows nothing about the voiceover industry, there's going to be a bigger learning curve in teaching them how to find what you are looking for. On the flip side of that, if you go to a site like VA for VO and now you are hiring a voice actor to be your virtual assistant, they obviously understand the industry and there's probably going to be a much lower learning curve in teaching somebody like that how to find the leads that you want them to find. And so that would be the other option. So va4vo.com is the website. You can sign up as a voice actor, tell them exactly what you're looking for, and then they will provide you with matches. The joke between Bridget and I, Bridget Reel is one of the people behind VA4VO. The joke between us is they've created Tinder for voice actors. That's what it feels like. You tell them what you're looking for, they find the matches for you, and that's how it is. And so you tell them that you're looking for somebody who can do lead generation for you, that you want them to work approximately this many hours a week, that you want them to be able to find these types of leads for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they are going to go and they're going to find somebody in their database of voiceover adjacent providers who they think would be a good match for you. And now you can work with somebody who's already inside of the industry. And so that's one of the ways that you can jump the learning curve. So again, that's the website there. It's va4vo.com, and it's FOR, not the number 4. So va4vo.com. If you're interested in checking out a site like that, and again, not a paid endorsement, but big fan of Bridget, Lynn, and Miranda and the work that they're doing, and happy to promote great tools that provide great service and add great value. Jen says, what are some specific techniques you advise people to use to get over their mental blocks to marketing themselves? The number one technique is simply this: you provide a valuable service. When I wake up in the morning and I check my emails, and I've got 100 different marketing emails from 100 different people trying to sell me 100 different things, part of the reason why a lot of those emails are frustrating is because they have nothing to do with me. The marketing emails that frustrate me the most are the ones where I'm like, did you even spend 2 seconds determining whether or not I was the right guy? I think we've probably all been through this if you use LinkedIn regularly. I get sales pitches on LinkedIn all the time from people who are outside of my network, and it is very obvious that they are just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that some of it will stick. They've done zero vetting. And so I get frustrated because people are wasting my time when they're trying to sell me a service that has no value to me, when they're trying to sell me a service that I don't need. The difference with voiceover marketing, if you're doing your voiceover marketing in the right way, you're targeting people who need you. You're targeting people who you can add value to. You are targeting people who will benefit from the service that you are offering. You are targeting people whose work you can enhance by your skill set. And so if you think about it from that perspective and approach it with confidence from that perspective, that is a game changer. I'm reaching out to these people because I can make their life easier. I can make their video better. I can make their client happier. I can deliver for them faster. I can deliver for them more professionally. Whatever it is, I know with confidence that when I am targeting the right people, these are people who can and will benefit from the service that I'm offering because it will add value to their work. If you think about it from that perspective, instead of thinking about it from the used car salesman perspective, which is where 99% of voice actors default when they're thinking about marketing, that's why we feel dirty, because marketing is associated with things like the used car salesman, the door-to-door salesman, right? And that drives us nuts. Don't think about it from that perspective. Think about it from the perspective of, I offer a valuable service that this person can benefit from. And when you think about it that way, it makes you want to tell people. It makes you excited to tell people because now you have something worthy to share with people. So that would be, I would say, the best technique that I have for working past some of those mindset and mental blocks. I did a podcast episode with Andrea Headhazy. Let me see if I can find that podcast. Andrea is an incredibly successful voice actor, and she is also a coach with the Tony Robbins organization. And so if you want to talk about somebody who can talk about mindset, but also understand it from a voice actor perspective. Andrea is that person. I just threw a link in the chat. That's actually to the Free Advice Friday, I believe. Is that the Free Advice Friday that we did together? Because I did have her on Free Advice Friday as well. Oh no, that's the podcast episode. So the link that I just put in is for the podcast episode, but I have also had her on Free Advice Friday. So let me see if I can find that link. Sorry, I'm looking, I'm scrolling. I'm trying to do two things at once here. Here we go. Mindset Q&A with Andrea Head Hazy. We talked about some of this stuff in the episode, or in the Free Advice Friday show that I did with Andrea as well. And she answered some of those specific things. You know, there's mindsets that you have to get over. There's imposter syndrome that you have to think about. There's all these different factors that play in. But the biggest thing is just remembering that you have a service that adds value to the people that you're reaching out to. And if you're connecting with the right people, then you should be excited to tell them about it. Guys, we got a couple minutes left. Again, if you've enjoyed Free Advice Friday, if you've learned anything, if I answered your question, if you picked up a nugget or an insight, would you do me a favor and hit that like button? I would certainly appreciate that. Also, one more time as a reminder, the ultimate VOpreneur subject line reference guide. 40 subject lines that you could literally plug and play into your emails today, as well as 5 different themes that you could use as concepts to generate your own subject lines, as well as a whole bunch of other tips that are available for helping you to determine subject lines that you could potentially use for your marketing emails. That is the ultimate VOpreneur subject line guide. This thing is available at VOpreneur.com. It's right here on the homepage. You can buy the guide for instant download. You can pick it up as soon as you're done watching the show today. $27, instant download. This is going to make your marketing efforts easier because it is going to remove the guesswork of what do I put in the subject line. But not only that, there's so many subject lines there. One of the most common pieces of feedback that I've heard from people who have purchased the guide is that it helped them to come up with another 15 different subject lines on their own. They just needed to see some subject lines to get them started. And so that was the big thing for me, was to get the creative juices flowing, spark a little bit of creativity. So check that out again at VOpreneur.com. And of course, all of the different coaching resources that I offer are available at VOpreneur.com. I got time for one more question today for Free Advice Friday. I don't know if I've missed any questions, but if you do have another question that you would like to ask and get answered, feel free to type it into the comments. I'm just going to kind of scroll back through here a little bit and see if I've missed anything. Don't forget to check out the new episode of the podcast, by the way, with Brandon Miller talking about LinkedIn and whether or not you can game the LinkedIn algorithm. And the short answer is yes, you can actually game the LinkedIn algorithm. There is a way to do that to a degree, but it may not be the most effective strategy. And so it might be something that you don't want to do. So I dive a little bit deeper into that in that episode of the podcast. So again, that's available at VOpreneur.com, or actually there's a video version of it right here on the YouTube channel as well. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll always get notified when new content's getting posted here as well. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Again, if you've got a question that you would like to ask and get answered, Dion says heading over to the website now. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Lots of different classes there, by the way, guys. Any of the classes that you see, they're all available for instant access. As soon as you sign up, you can start watching the videos. One of the other things that I'm a big fan of, if you buy a class from me and I update that class, which I do update my classes fairly regularly, you will always have access to the updates as well. So there are people who bought my LinkedIn class 5 years ago who have received 5 different versions of that class now because I update that almost every year. So once you buy it, you will always have access to it. All right, here we go. Stevie says, having trouble not viewing other VOs, especially same vocal print, as competition. Trying to make friends with others, but weary of revealing everything. How to overcome that mindset. There's more than enough work out there for all of us. Honestly, I know that sounds so cliche, but I believe that. I really do believe that there is more than enough work out there for all of us. I have been coaching voice actors directly since 2016. I've been coaching voice actors indirectly for a lot longer because I wrote a blog for many years. I was writing a blog 5 days a week for years before that. I get asked all the time, are you not worried about building your own competition? Are you not worried about creating your own competition? Because like, look at what you guys just did today. We just sat here on YouTube for an hour and I answered your business and marketing questions for free. And I gave you straight answers. I didn't hide anything. I told you exactly the things that I do. I told you exactly the things that I know. Some of you asked questions where I literally quoted out what you could write in the email for you. Would I be doing that if I was worried about creating competition for myself? No, because I think that there's more than enough opportunity out there for all of us. And so I have no problem sharing insights, giving answers, having conversations, coaching voice actors, teaching voice actors, teaching them the exact same things that I'm doing. It doesn't bother me because I know that there is more than enough opportunity out there. And I also know that I'm putting something good out. And when you put something good out, good things come back. And I believe that. Call it karma, call it faith, call it whatever you want. But I absolutely believe that as well. So, I mean, I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but I think that it is a mindset that doesn't serve you. If you view everybody as your competition, that's a mindset that doesn't serve you because that's a lack-based mindset. It's a limiting mindset. That mindset makes the assumption that there is only a certain number of jobs to be done. There is only a certain amount of money that can be made. There are only a certain number of bookings that can be achieved. And that is a lack mindset. And that kind of mindset is going to hold you back. And so when you look at this as there are plenty of opportunities out there, there is more than enough money out there for any of us to go and earn it if we choose to earn it, put in the effort, put in the time, put in the work. When you view it from that way, from an abundance mindset, I think that changes the game for you. So Stevie, hopefully that answers your question. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining me on Free Advice Friday. I love doing these broadcasts. I love answering your questions. I always want to make sure that I'm trying to add value to you. And if you do find value, the only thing I would ask, hit that like button, of course, but check out some of the offerings that I do have on my website. And if you think the advice here is good, imagine how much better it is in some of the classes that I offer as well. So everything that you can find, everything that I have to offer is available at VOpreneur.com. Whatever you decide to do this weekend, have fun, stay safe as always, and go find some leads.